Hey guys, it's Mitch with Fab402. Today we got a different project going on. We got a 97 F250 7.3 Powerstroke crew cab short box, and pretty much the reason we're going to be working on this vehicle is, well, it started with the front leaf springs kind of blew out and need replaced, but it's turned into axle swap. So we're going to be swapping axles from a 2007 Superduty into this truck. The reason we're doing the video here wasn't really we couldn't really find anything online that helped us walk us through it, so hopefully this will be a better piece of material for anybody else trying to do the same, and also kind of a cool before and after for this truck. Kind of gonna blow through the rear end, the rear axle. It's kind of it's gonna be kind of simple, of just a little unbolt and throw the new one and bolt it back up, but quite a few components do change with the front axle. With the major, we're going from leaf springs to coils, and then you just also have, you know, track bar, bracket and stuff, that a whole lot of variables need to change up there. So we'll do a little time lapse, go through and pop in through and give instruction wherever we see it's fit. All right, so the rear end is done, and just a quick recap of what everything we went through in the time lapse, just to give a little more in depth on it. So when we took this axle out, one of the main things we did while we were still, let me get out of the light there, is when it was out, just to be easier, replace the sensor here. And then just to get it done without being too fancy, we kept the same shock brackets that were on this axle originally from the 07, and we just flipped them around, find out where they lined up with the factory shocks here, and they just have U-bolts. We bolted them in place, put a little weld down in there just to keep them from rotating on us. Like I said, it was just the quicker option to get the job done. Might go ahead and fabricate some actual brackets and then weld it to the axle later on, but that's just what we did for now. We removed the block because they originally had a lift on here, and then just U-bolts the springs to the axle just like it was before. While it was out, Colton replaced the yoke, so when we go to get our new drive shaft, it will line up just like with the 97 factory. And really, other than that, I mean, we had to clean some stuff off the 07 axle. We took the sway bar off. Didn't really think, didn't have one from the factory, so I wasn't really too worried about continuing it on with this. And that's all I can think of. But really, it's pretty simple. It just lined up with the 97 factory leaf springs. So now, time to move forward to the front axle, which will be a little bit more of a challenge. All right, so here is the front axle and what we'll be starting off with swapping out. So the reason for the swap is these leaf springs up here are completely spent. Got a little bit of damage here, like you can tell this shaft's been hitting up in here. So instead of spending the money just to replace the leaves, this truck, it was always a struggle to get the camber right, just because it has this split front axle, which I'm not a fan of, and not a lot of dudes are. So we're swapping it to the 07 Superduty front axle. So it'll be a coil conversion And then we'll also be having to have some steering components change just to work with the new axle. And we'll have to put in some coil buckets, and then also we'll be having radius arms coming from the axle back to in this area. So that's all that's going in, and we'll figure out how to do it on the way.
Here's the axle we're swapping in. Out of what Superduty? 07. There's gonna be a lot of different brackets going on in here, but this is going into that solid front axle, so no more split, and these massive radius arms instead of the leaf springs.
All right, so what you're looking at here is the split front axle, the 97 Powerstroke, the stock one that we're replacing. So the split factor of it is why pretty much we wanted to get rid of it, and it's not really a fan favorite for anybody from what I understand. So pretty much this whole front would pivot as far as your suspension, and then you had your shafts for the four-wheel drive going through those housings. So over the video you saw us struggling a bit to get that center member dislodged that was up in here. So now what's going on is we got to get these shock towers out of here because it's going to be a coil conversion. Going to put the coil buckets up there. Pretty much over the time lapse what we did was we loosened up the leaves, but that's what's holding it in place when the truck was up. So it'd be simpler to get them out when we're down low, and then we made sure before we started any process of getting rid of the front axle, the drive shaft was separated as long as the brake lines, and to the pitman arm here, your steering. So yeah, the buckled look of it on the ground makes it even more of a sell not to want that thing. The front axle is not as nearly as a simple bolt-in as the rear was. So what we have here are some pretty much custom brackets for exactly this, to put an 07 front axle into an OBS. And so what we got here is our two coil buckets. These are going to connect to the radius arms for the front axle. We have two links LB from the rad support for the sway bar, and this right here is a track bar bracket for the steering components. And this whole setup right here is so what we have here is pretty much the equivalent of, I believe it's RYD Motorsports make a kit to do this. We are a fabrication shop, so we have CNC table, press brake, welding obviously. So we kind of mimic that one. If you're looking to do a kit for your own swap, I believe it's RYD. I'll look up and make sure. But yeah, so this whole kit I believe would be around like $1,600 through them. But so those coil buckets will go up here in place of these shock towers. Radius arm gonna be back here instead of having this rear leaf spring mount, and track bar somewhere in this relative area, and that's all part of your steering components. So you'll see them as far as exactly what they do and where they're located, as far as when we go through the install of the 07 front Super Duty axle. All right. Here is what our coil bucket looks like installed. Took those shock towers out, and those 4 locating holes got our brackets main 4 right here. Had a rubber bump underneath here, which we air hammered with a bit those off and punched them out. And then we had to drill these 2, put them in. Overall, with the holes locating on there, went pretty smooth. Just loose thread the main 4 in, put the bottom 2 in, tighten them up to get your level, smash against the bottom of the frame, ensure strength, then 4, sucked them in, so it's pretty much solid at that point, and went ahead and drilled 2 1/2-inch holes, put 2 more bolts in there. Yeah, you should be able to hammer. Or if not,
A few moments later.
Just maybe keep tapping on and wiggling. What if we just really walk this one back and walk it back forward?
Reminder, for your safety and the protection of those around you, do not attempt any of the stunts you
Are about to see.
all right, so we're calling it a day. The truck is on its 2 new Super Duty axles. Like I said before, I have a 2007 Super Duty. What we're sitting at right now is, I mean, it's not finished. We still have to get the proper hardware for the panhard bar into the bracket. We got to modify these brackets to fit into our sway bar brackets to fit into the ones that mount underneath the frame horns up here. You can see back here, we got our radius arms in with a bolt, but we're gonna go back through and put new hardware for that. We got our new radius arm brackets in. All the brackets are set and everything tied in the frame is set. It's just the hardware. You know, we ended up just not having proper hardware on hand in shop. Instead of taking the time out and going to get that, we figured we'd just get to the point where it's pretty much locked in here on the truck. Overall today, time-wise, might have spent about 6 hours, 7 hours to get to the point where we went from the 2 old brackets on the truck, the stock ones, removing those, removing all the specific hardware that would go with those and that would get in the way of the new brackets, and then putting in the new brackets for the axles. And the axles are now, I don't know what you want to say, a soft mount in them, but it just needs a little buttoned up. And you'll see, I don't know if you can tell on camera really, but the truck, for one, it doesn't have proper air pressure in all 4 tires, but it does sit a little low in the rear from level. And that is, we definitely want a level ride height, which whatever we have to do to get there, but we still have, like, obviously fenders, hood, front bumper to get up here. So we're hoping that weighs it down, brings it down to the proper level that we want. And if it doesn't, we might modify the coils up front, or just put a block under here underneath the rear leaves. But overall, pretty smooth, and look forward to buttoning it up.